There are two main ways to configure Tor. One is through the GUI in the main browser, as you can see here, and the other is through configuration files. The main configuration file is the torc file, that's spelled T-O-R-R-C. And making changes in the GUI edits this file. It edits the torc file and sometimes other files as well. But the default configuration should work in most cases, and I don't recommend you make any changes until you really understand what you're doing and have read through the Tor documentation. Here we are in Windows, and you'll find the torc file in the Tor browser, Tor browser, data, Tor folder, and there is the torc file. And in Windows, that's what it looks like. But in Tails, for example, this is what it looks like. Lots more information in there. On OS X, if you want to find the torc file, you need to go to your Applications folder, then find your Tor browser icon. Then you need to right click or control click, show package contents, and then navigate through to Tor browser, data, Tor, and then torc. So that's the full path there to it, and that's the file. And it looks like that, pretty similar to the one in Windows. If you can't find it on any of the operating systems, just do a search for the torc file, T-O-R-R-C. Here on Linux, you'll find the torc file where you installed it, and then browser, Tor browser, data, Tor, and then there's the torc file. And if we have a look at the file, we can see it looks like the Windows and the Mac torc file. Tor also puts the torc file in user local etc Tor if you compile Tor from source, and etc Tor or etc if you installed a pre-built package. To get familiar with the torc file and how to use it, there is a manual here, and if you go down you can see the command line options here, and a bit further down you can also find the general options. These are the options used within the torc file. You can also man Tor, and there's a lot of information in there as well, which is quite useful. Tor also provides a sample Tor configuration file for common configurations, which is quite useful. So if you're struggling, maybe you have examples in here, and it's got some good commentary as well. So I'll give you an example of editing the torc file. One of the common changes that people make is to alter the geographic location of their entry or exit node, and here we are on the FAQ, and we can see the entries that are required in order to change them. So it's entry nodes, exit nodes, and if we go down here we actually need to put in the country code, and as it says here, it's the ISO standard for country code. So it's these, DE for Germany, for example. So let's go into Debian. Let's edit the torc file. So that's going to force the Tor browser to go via a German node, German entry node. And that's going to force us to go through the United Kingdom or Great Britain, GB. So let's save that. And there we are. So we've gone through Germany, exited out of the United Kingdom. You may have noticed here you can also specify the actual relays that you want to use, or different relays that you want to use by putting in their fingerprint here. If we have a look at the consensus here, let's pick a relay at random, kittens on Tor. I'm going to go to Atlas here, which is atlas.torproject.org. Paste that in. And here we can see the relay and its ports. Got some flags on what it does. It's a fast one. Let's click on here, and there's the fingerprint there. So we could select that and go by that relay instead. Note that if you pick a relay, it has to be the sort of relay that you're after. So it would have to work or function as a guard if you're going to have it as a guard. There may or may not be a benefit to changing the country or relay of the entry and or exit node. It all depends on the type of attack you're trying to mitigate. If your adversary is using secret deals with telcos to enable man on the side attacks, then using relays out of their sphere of influence because they maybe can't get to that particular telco will definitely help you. If on the other hand, your adversary is performing some sort of Sybil attack in combination with a correlation attack where he can run his own relays, it's not going to help you. I'll talk more about Sybil attacks and correlation attacks in their own section. Tor chooses circuits based on network load. If you make manual changes to the circuit, this could make you stand out. I don't recommend you make manual changes to the circuits unless you really know what you're doing. In order for the configuration within the torque file to take effect, you need to restart the Tor browser. Or alternative, you can also issue a pkill -psyop Tor, which will have the same effect, but usually it's better to just restart the Tor browser. To finish off, I'm going to go through the example torque file with you so you can get a better idea of the syntax and what it is you can do with a torque file. So let's go down here. We can see here these hashes. All of these hashes need to be removed for a command such as this to take effect. Hashes are just comments as they are in most documents. So here, line 18, this tells Tor to open a SOCKS proxy on this port 9050, which is for all applications to use to send traffic via Tor. And here we are binding it to a specific IP address and port. Set it to SOCKS port 0 if you're only running a relay and not sending traffic through the relay yourself. So that might be a rare occasion. We're going to talk more about the SOCKS port shortly and how you put other applications through it. These are the entry policies to allow or deny SOCKS requests based on their IP address. And I think the syntax is pretty obvious. That's an accept, and that is for this network with a /16 subnet mask. Go down a little bit. We can see here this enables logging. It enables notice level logging to this file. And then we have a similar one here where we've got debug level logging to this file. And then we can also send to syslog as well. But warning, you don't want to be doing logging if you're concerned about local forensics. This would only be for testing or if you don't care about local forensics. 49, this is to run Tor as a daemon process in the background. Say for example, if you don't want the Tor browser running at the same time, this does not work in Windows as it says here. This is the control port set at 9051. Applications can remotely control Tor by issuing commands to this port, and you can establish authentication with these, and as default it is set up for authentication using cookie authentication. At least it is on the ones I've seen. Move down a little bit. If you're wanting to run a hidden service, that means a service that is on the dark web or a .onion server. This is part of how you would start to enable it. So here, this is how you set the directory for what people will connect to. And this is how you set the port to redirect to localhost and then port 80. And here we have other examples. As I have said, I recommend Debian and or Unix for setting up hidden services or relays or bridges. And for setting up relays, we have the options here for how you do that. The OR port here, set at 9001. This is the port used to advertise for incoming Tor connections if you are a relay. If you're wondering what ports are used to connect to by default in Tor, or what ports you might need to open on a firewall, well, Tor attempts to connect on any port that is advertised in the directory as an OR port for making Tor connections, or a dir port for fetching updates to the directory. There are a variety of these ports. Many of them are running on port 80, 443, 9001 and 9030, but many other ports are used, and as you can see here, you can configure this to be whatever port it is that you want. You can here set up the DNS name for your relay, and here you can set up the nickname for your relay. Then you've got a whole bunch of bandwidth options for limiting bandwidth, throttling traffic, allowing bursty traffic. This is what port to advertise for directory connections, which we mentioned just a second ago. And here are your exit policy rules. So here, for example, as it says here, it's allowing IRC ports. These are the IRC ports on IPv4 and IPv6. Here we're accepting NNTP ports, that's news groups. Here we're accepting NNT ports, but on IPv4 only, and this is IPv6 only, and no exits allowed. I think you get an idea of the kind of syntax. Now, if you want to set up your relay as a bridge, that's with this command here, and if you want to run a private bridge, then that's this command here. The talk-defaults file contains the default settings for Tor. This is a file not intended to be edited. The talk file is what should be edited, but this shows you what Tor is essentially set up to do. And here we can see we have our SOCKS port open on 9150, allowing IPv6 traffic, etc. We've got our control port here. There's the cookie authentication for the control port, and these are the pluggable transports that are available for this Tor configuration. But as I said, you do not edit that file, you do not edit this file, you would edit the talk file, which is this one, and that would overwrite the default file. So that's the talk file. Hope that has helped.